Hey everybody, it's Matt from the house, and in this video we're going to show you a few of our favorite Freeride boards for the 21-22 season. Let's check these out. All right, first up we've got the Salomon Sight, which is a pretty unique board in the Freeride category because it's under $400. Salomon basically wanted to offer a board for those intermediate riders, those guys that just learned how to ride and basically have no aspirations of getting into the park. They basically just want to go out, spend most of their time riding one direction and have dreams of getting to the powder one day. So this board does have a lot of stuff in it for the price. We've actually got a aspen core in this thing, which is nice and lively. It's not a board that's too stiff. It's not too soft either. So it does have that nice, easy, medium flex to it. So again, it is for somebody who's just kind of getting into snowboarding or has just got into snowboarding and just wants a nice, easy ride, but wants something that they can actually ride a little bit faster on. With that in mind, we actually have got these rubber dampening pads underneath each of the feet. So those are there to help absorb those vibrations. So when you do start to ride a little bit faster and start to lay down some harder carves, it's going to get rid of that vibration and basically help the board hold just a little bit better edge. It does do a camber to rocker design, so we still get that power in between your feet, and then you get a little bit of that rocker in the nose and tail, so if you do get into some deep snow, you get that float. Also, when you're just riding on flat snow, you get a little bit more of an easier catch-free feel, just making it a little bit more effortless and easier to initiate turns without having to worry about the board hooking up and taking off on you. All right, next up, we have another board that's a great bang for the buck, the Gnu Antigravity. So this is kind of a heritage board. This has been in Gnu's lineup for a long time. Like we're talking early 90s, maybe even in the 80s. I don't remember the exact year it came out, but I remember when I was first starting snowboarding, I saw this board in the big neon graphic with the big anti-gravity across the tail, and I wanted it so bad. But obviously it has evolved over the years. It's even become more rider friendly, and the price on it has come down a little bit for that, intermediate rider who's looking to get into the backcountry and maybe get off the groomed slopes, but it still rides amazing on the groomed slopes. With the mixed glassing, we got triax and biax fiberglass in this thing, so you get a little bit snappier feel, but still has a nice, easy, smooth feel. And then we're also doing that magnet traction on there too, so you get that serrated edge where basically instead of just having 2 contact points digging in on those harder, icier conditions, we actually have 7 contact points. So it literally is like a steak knife cutting into the ice. Another thing they're doing is the C3, which is basically their cambered board that has a little bit of rocker in the middle, but it still is a camber dominant board. You'll notice the middle is still lifted up. By having that very light rocker, it creates a tipping point. So in conjunction with the directional shape, the longer nose and that shorter tail, both of those things are actually going to make the board want to sit back a little bit so you don't have to lean back too far when you're getting into some deep snow. All right, next up, a brand new board for Burton this year, the Burton Cartographer. So cool board. Burton has had the flight attendant in their lineup for a long time, and it's one of their most popular all-mountain boards for those guys that probably aren't going to ride park, but maybe want to dip in there every once in a while. But again, a really Freeride focused board with nice big nose, a little bit shorter tail, also doing that directional camber too, where it actually is cambered in the back, and then they do the rocker in the nose. So all of those things combined, you're basically getting a board that wants to float really, really big in the nose and sit down in the tail. But compared to the flight attendant, the Cartographer basically doesn't have the carbon in it, and it's not as stiff of a board. All right, the stiffer fiberglass and that carbon in the flight attendant, it does make it a little bit more aggressive board, and there was a lot of people that said, hey, we like the idea of that, but it's just a little too much. We want something that's a little easier, smoother feel, something that edge to edge has that easier initiation, is not so quick. And that's where the Cartographer came into play. It's kind of like the little brother to the flight attendant. They're still doing a triaxial fiberglass and a sintered base on this thing, so it's definitely not going to feel dead under your feet. But again, for those guys that have been free riding, they just want to go out and carve and float around in the snow, but maybe they don't want a super aggressive board, then this is a perfect board for you. All right, next up, we've got the Lib Tech BRD. Pretty cool story behind this board. This actually started as a split board. Usually you see a lot of boards that companies make and it's like, oh, this is a really cool board that's free ride, great for getting in the powder, let's make a split version of it. This one actually went the other way. They made a split version of it and their team riders rode it and they loved it so much that they wanted to ride it as a regular board for their regular resort days too, where they're actually maybe getting into the powder but also riding groomers half of the day. So it kind of tells you how cool of a board this is. So right off the bat, we're getting into a lot of those traditional free ride things where we do the shorter tail. We've got the longer nose. You'll also notice that the kick of the nose, not only is it longer, but it's really, really mellow too. A lot of people think that more kick is gonna get the nose out of the snow, but actually you want a mellower kick that's longer, that's actually gonna help the board plane off and get up on top of the snow better. I always kind of liken it to a tugboat, which plows water, versus a cigarette boat that actually is really, really long bow and gets up on top of the water and moves super, super fast across the top of the water. Same thing with this board when you get into some deep snow. Lib Tech's also doing a mixed glass in this thing, so you're getting kind of the best of the triaxle, that snappy, lively feel, but then also a little bit of the smoother feel of the biax, but you still get a good flex throughout the board overall. Lib Tech is also doing their C3 in this one, where you do get that camber dominant board with a little bit of that rocker in the middle, so it kind of creates that tilting point when you do get into the deep snow, and it does want to tilt back a little bit, so you can spend a little less time leaning back and more time with your legs not burning while you're riding pow all day long. All right, last up, we've got the Jones Flagship. I don't think there's any company out there that's more known in the free ride world than Jones. They do have some boards for riding, all mountain and getting into the park too, but most of their boards are focused around getting out into the backcountry, getting into some deep stuff, or just going out and laying down super, super hard cars. And the Flagship has always been that board. It's why it's called the Flagship. It is their flagship board. All right, so Jones is doing a camber to rocker design on this board. We got the camber in the middle to a little bit of rocker in the nose. Basically, we're giving it the power between your feet, so torsionally it's a little stiffer and it wants to push in and out of your turns. But then we got that rocker in the nose, so you get an easier catch-free feel, and it also lifts those tips up and makes them want to float a little bit better. And as if that wasn't enough, they're obviously doing that longer, mellower kick in the nose, that shorter kick in the tail. That's going to help the board sit even further down in the tail and higher in the nose. And then on top of that, we also have their 3D shaping, where side to side it's kind of dished out a little bit, nose and tail. So basically the snow isn't just getting pushed that way away from the board, it's actually getting pushed side to side as well, and it's really helping to clear the snow away from the board and not wanting to make it bog down when you get into some deep snow. Then obviously you can't have a pow day absolutely every single day, so this thing rides amazing when you get it onto the groomers. We've got a few things. We got the 9900 base, which is crazy, crazy fast. We've got those flax and basalt stringers through the board too, so when you are pushing really, really hard on your edges, it's wanting to push back. And if you do want to take this thing off some jumps and stuff, it's going to have unbelievable snap, pop, and stability on your landings. And then on top of that, triaxle fiberglass, so you get a nice aggressive feel. Another cool thing this board has is their Traction Tech 3.0. So instead of just having 2 contact points to dig in on those harder, icier conditions, we actually have 3 more bumps along the side of the board too that are basically acting like contact points. So when you go to dig in, they're really ripping into that hard, icy snow, basically to keep the board on edge and keep it from sliding out from underneath you, especially when you're riding a little bit faster. And as if all of that wasn't enough and this board wasn't rad enough on its own, Jones makes an ultra version, the Ultra Flagship. So basically take this board, but soup it up with carbon layup inside, also give it their ultra base, which is crazy fast, and then they also do an ash veneer on top, which is even snappier, livelier, and more stable than the veneer that's on the Flagship itself. Basically, if you like a super, super aggressive board, or if you've just been riding the Flagship for a while and you want that more aggressive, lighter weight version, then definitely check out the Ultra Flagship. All right, well, thanks for checking out just a few of our favorite freeride boards for the 21-22 season. Obviously, we couldn't show them all to you, or else this video would be way, way too long. But if you got any questions about these boards or any of the other freeride boards that we have at thehouse.com, leave some comments down below. We're on there every single day trying to answer your questions. We want to make sure that we obviously get you into some rad gear, but more importantly, we want to make sure that it's actually going to fit you and your riding style. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, definitely get that notification bell on too so you can find out when all the new videos drop. And no matter what kind of free riding you're doing, whether you're out floating around in the snow, whether you're digging trenches in the groomers, or a little bit of both, grab yourself a free ride board and get out and ride, because any day of riding is a good day of riding.